We use imaginary numbers when we want to find the square root of a negative number. If you wanted to find the square root of, let's say, -9, if you were to enter this on your calculator, it will give you an error. It will say you cannot do this. And the reason is because the inverse or the opposite of the square root of a number is a number elevated to the second power. So when I'm square rooting a number, let's say that I'm square rooting 9, I'm looking for the number that when it's multiplied by itself gives me 9. In this case, it will be 3. So 3 times 3 gives me 9. That will be the answer. And the answer can be either a positive 3 or negative 3. Because even if I elevate negative 3 to the second power, that will give me the positive 9. So there is no number that I can elevate to the second power and will give me a negative number. That is the reason your calculator cannot calculate the square root of -9. So that is when we use imaginary numbers, and the imaginary numbers are represented by the letter I. It is like a tilde I, and it equals the square root of -1. And another thing that you need to remember is that I squared equals -1. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be learning about imaginary numbers. We are going to be working with them, and in a nutshell, you have to remember that I equals the square root of -1 and I squared equals -1. So let's start working with this concept. We're going to simplify the square root of -12. So to simplify this, I'm going to rewrite -12 as 4 times 3 times -1. Why 4? Because 4 is a perfect square, and I want to simplify this, and we have simplified radicals in the past. So hopefully you remember this. So the square root of 4 is 2. The square root of -1 is going to be the tilde letter I, which is an imaginary number. And then the square root of 3 is just going to stay like that, as a square root of 3. This one is a prime number, so you cannot square root it evenly. It is an irrational number. And that will be the answer. Let's try this other one. 2 square root of -36. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2 square root of 36. 36 is a perfect square, so I'm just going to leave it like that. So the square root of 36 is 6. So it's going to be 6 times the 2 that I already had outside the radical, times the square root of -1, which is I. So the answer will be 12I. Now let's try to solve a couple of equations by using imaginary numbers. Let's say that I have to solve x squared equals -36. And remember, to solve is to find the value or values of x that make the equation true. So what do? Well, I need to square root both sides because I'm looking for x. So when I square root both sides, I will have x equals plus minus, and then the square root of 36 times -1. Well, the square root of 36, we know that is 6. And then the square root of -1 is I. So then that will be the answer. Let's try another one. Let's try x squared plus 48 equals 0. So we're solving for x, so I'm going to subtract 48 from both sides. That's going to give me x squared equals -48. Then we square root both sides. So it will be x equals plus minus the square root of 48 can be rewritten as 16 times 3 because 16 is a perfect square times -1. So then the square root of 16 is 4. The square root of -1 is I, and then square root of 3, and that will be the answer. Okay, let's try one more. 9x squared plus 25 equals 0. We first subtract 25 from both sides. So that's going to give us 9x squared equals -25. Then we are going to divide both sides by 9. So then we will have x squared equals negative 25 over 9. And then we are going to square root both sides. So then we will have x equals plus minus, the square root of 25 is 5, the square root of 9 is 3, but we also had a negative, remember, so then it will be the letter I, the imaginary I. Okay, stay tuned for the next video in which we're going to be working with complex numbers.